The leak of court documents related to the Harrison family has opened a new, turbulent chapter in their story, shedding light on deep secrets and power struggles behind the glittering facade of fame. Behind the dazzling scenes of the TV show Pawn Stars, a fierce battle has quietly raged, where every relationship has been tested. These documents not only reveal financial disputes, but also signal profound fractures within the family, cracks that seem impossible to mend. The lawsuit between Joanne Harrison, Rick Harrison's ex-wife, and his own son, Corey Harrison, is not just a simple property dispute. It is a fierce struggle over loyalty, trust, and betrayal, as family secrets are laid bare before the public. The tension between the Harrison family members has become a larger story, a tragedy behind the fame they've built over the years. Have you ever wondered what mysterious secrets lie hidden in Rick Harrison's secret tunnel? If you think there might be something shocking waiting to be uncovered, leave a comment with the number 1. If not, leave a comment with the number 0. Don't forget to hit the like button, share the video, and comment your thoughts below to let us know. Be sure to subscribe to support us and get more unexpected revelations like this one. Now, let's dive into the story together. As the founder and manager of the family's trust fund, Joanne Harrison dedicated her life to building the financial empire on which the family relies. She had skillfully constructed a strong empire, which included not only the gold and silver pawn shop, but also large investments in real estate and securities, all managed under a trust that she and her husband had established over decades. However, the betrayal by Rick, the son she had trusted to inherit the family legacy, eroded all trust and shattered the relationship between them. Joanne's lawsuit reflects a power struggle not only within the Harrison family, but also between what she had painstakingly built and what Rick, as the heir, wanted to control. The leaked court documents reveal that it wasn't just the gold and silver pawn shop, but other family assets, from real estate to investment funds, that were fiercely contested. What makes this story even more complicated and dramatic is the instability within the Harrison family, not just financially, but also emotionally. Joanne was not only concerned about Rick mismanaging the family's wealth, but she also expressed deep worries that the investments and financial strategies she had put in place could be destroyed under her son's leadership. Any changes to the trust's policies and how the family's assets were used could fundamentally alter the way the Harrison family had existed and grown for many years. This lawsuit, though related to assets and ownership, is really a clear manifestation of the breakdown in values and trust within the family. The conflicts between Joanne and Rick reflect not just disagreements over managing property, but a clash between two generations. One side is the founder, determined to protect the family legacy, while the other side is the son, wanting to change, adjust, and control everything that has been built. The story of the Harrison family, with all its secrets and underlying instability, serves as a reminder of the price that must be paid when fame and power intrude upon a family's life. Fame may bring tremendous success, but it can also strain relationships and make them fragile, and sometimes that is the price anyone involved must pay. The legal battle between Rick Harrison and his mother, Joanne, is not just a property dispute, but also a struggle over power, trust, and family reputation. Current legal theories suggest that Rick may have exploited his control over the family's assets to transfer large sums of money without his mother's consent. This would not only violate the terms of the family trust, but also threaten the Harrison family's financial stability for years to come. The question is whether Rick has become too greedy, failing to recognize the gravity of his actions, or if he feels stifled by the overwhelming control his mother, who has spent her life building the family empire, has over the business. One of the most controversial theories surrounding this lawsuit involves Rick's attempt to expand and develop the gold and silver pawn shop in his own direction. If this theory is true, it suggests that Rick may have been trying to establish a financial empire independent of his mother's original vision for the family. Withdrawing a large portion of assets from the family trust without Joanne's approval would be easily explained in this context. He may have viewed separating his finances from his mother's as a necessary step towards achieving independence and freedom in his business. However, this move not only raises financial concerns, but also causes significant family consequences, as the betrayal comes with deep emotional wounds. Beyond the financial theory, this lawsuit highlights another crucial issue: trust and family relationships. Joanne Harrison, the founder and primary manager of the family trust, is said to have expressed in her testimony that she feels completely betrayed by her son. She has spent her entire life nurturing the family, safeguarding the wealth she meticulously built and ensuring that it would be used fairly for future generations. However, this betrayal has not only caused emotional damage, but also created a wave of instability in the family dynamics. The Harrison family's relationships, once close and tight-knit, are no longer as they once were. This breakdown is what has turned the dispute between Joanne and Rick into more than just a property division. It has become a battle for trust and power. With the leaked court documents, the fight between Joanne and Rick has moved beyond a typical financial dispute. It is now a symbolic battle over power and family legacy. The appearance of the leaked documents has only complicated the dispute further, as each side struggles to protect its interests and honor its legacy. Will Joanne Harrison regain control of her family's assets, or will Rick continue to assert his power and challenge his mother in this prolonged battle? These questions remain unanswered, and the public is closely following every step of the legal proceedings, speculating on the outcome of this conflict. The details of the lawsuit continue to be revealed as the hearings unfold, and the next developments could leave the public stunned. The next chapter of this battle may uncover crucial details and reveal secrets that few people know about. However, one thing that cannot be overlooked is the legal troubles surrounding Rick Harrison in relation to the gold and silver pawn shop, one of the most important family assets. This pawn shop is not just a business. It is a symbol of the family's success. It is their pride, a fertile ground for future generations to continue building wealth and fame. But behind the glamour and success, a series of legal disputes and allegations are brewing. Rick Harrison's business career is currently under threat not only from his conflict with his mother, but also from a series of other legal disputes regarding the management of the gold and silver pawn shop. Allegations of poor management, unfair profit distribution, and conflicts with business partners have made the future of this business uncertain. Leaked court documents suggest that internal family disagreements about how to manage assets and divide profits have strained the relationships within the Harrison family. The gold and silver pawn shop is not just a business. It is a symbol of the Harrison family's legacy. If this legal dispute is not resolved properly, it could cause long-lasting damage to the brand and reputation of the family. Additionally, allegations of poor financial management and disputes over profits could diminish the shop's value in the eyes of the public and business partners. These issues not only affect the business empire, but also impact the entire family, particularly the future of the next generation. The battle between Joanne and Rick Harrison is not just a typical lawsuit, but rather a symbolic struggle over power, trust, and the sustainability of the family legacy. Every step of this lawsuit has drawn attention from the public and experts alike, keeping everyone on edge as they await the next developments. Will this breakdown create a major turning point for the Harrison family, or will it lead to the collapse of an empire that has existed for decades? Only time will tell. A high-profile lawsuit involving Rick Harrison has captured public attention, stemming from allegations made by business partners and former employees of Gold and Silver Pawn Shop regarding his lack of transparency in financial agreements and profit distribution. These partners, who had worked with Rick for many years, claimed that he engaged in shady practices when distributing profits from transactions involving gold, silver, diamonds, and other valuable items. According to the partners, Rick failed to provide complete information about revenue and expenditures, leaving some feeling deprived of the profits they believed they were entitled to. In addition to the accusations from business partners, Rick is also facing another lawsuit related to disputes with several former employees of the shop, who claim that they were not paid fairly and did not receive their rightful share of the profits from the transactions they facilitated. These employees allege that Rick deliberately concealed details about their financial agreements, preventing them from knowing the actual income they were entitled to from items the store bought and sold. They also argue that while the store generated millions of dollars in revenue, they only received a small portion of the profits, which was disproportionate to the effort they put in. These lawsuits not only put Rick at risk of potential financial losses, but also create a wave of doubt about his business practices. Can Rick truly manage such a vast empire without significant financial oversight errors? Or is this part of a deliberate strategy to increase his own profits, even at the cost of betraying the trust of those around him? As these legal battles continue to unfold, the key question remains unanswered. How can Rick sustain his business empire in the long run when it's plagued by so many legal conflicts and internal issues? These lawsuits not only put Rick at risk of potential financial losses, but also create a wave of doubt about his business practices. Can Rick truly manage such a vast empire without significant financial oversight errors? Or is this part of a deliberate strategy to increase his own profits, even at the cost of betraying the trust of those around him? As these legal battles continue to unfold, the key question remains unanswered. How can Rick sustain his business empire in the long run when it's plagued by so many legal conflicts and internal issues? Some speculate that Rick has built a strong network of relationships within the pawn industry, which has helped shield the shop from lawsuits and legal troubles. However, this recognition only raises more questions about the protection Rick is receiving from his allies in the industry. Indeed, considering past lawsuits and how he handled difficult situations, it is clear that Rick Harrison is not easily defeated. He has successfully navigated legal challenges in the past and even built a reputation as a leader in the pawn industry. However, with the serious allegations from his family and business partners this time, the question remains: can Rick continue to maintain his empire, or will he face severe consequences, not only financially but also in terms of his reputation and family relationships? Currently, the relationships within the Harrison family are more strained than ever. The ongoing lawsuit has put Rick under constant legal pressure. However, one widely discussed theory is whether he truly understands the gravity of the situation and has a strategy to overcome these challenges, or if he is simply becoming a pawn in a larger power game that he cannot control. As the story of the conflict between Rick and his family becomes more complex, one thing is certain: the legal documents related to this case will continue to reveal more secrets. These revelations could force people to reconsider how Rick Harrison has been managing his empire. Is this a display of maintaining power wisely, or just a series of poor decisions leading to the potential collapse of the Harrison family? In January 2024, the sudden death of Adam Harrison, Rick Harrison's son, sent shockwaves through the public and the media. Adam, who had been an important part of the Harrison family, passed away after overdosing on fentanyl and methamphetamine. This tragic event not only left the family grieving deeply, but also raised a series of unanswered questions about Rick's relationship with his son, as well as the hidden struggles within the environment of this famous family. Before his death, Adam had lived in the shadow of a well-known family, where every action and decision was scrutinized by the public. Growing up within the empire of the gold and silver pawn shop, the pressure to uphold the family's reputation was undoubtedly overwhelming. However, Adam's death, particularly from drug abuse, prompted many to question whether the Harrison family environment was truly healthy. Did the pressures of work, fame, and expectations from his father play a role in this tragedy? Adam Harrison was rarely in the public eye, unlike his father, Rick, who was the face of the famous Pawn Stars television show. While Rick was a dominant figure constantly at the center of attention, Adam maintained a quieter, more reserved image. Yet this silence surrounding Adam sparked much speculation about his life and mental state. Some began to theorize that Adam might have felt overwhelmed by the very family he belonged to, especially when living under the massive shadow of his famous father and facing continuous public expectations. In the last years of his life, Adam is said to have faced many personal challenges. While details about his relationship with Rick before his death remain unclear, some insiders claim that the father-son relationship was not always smooth. Stories of distance, differing opinions, and arguments were not uncommon in families with differing lifestyles and visions. Did Adam feel abandoned by his father, who was always busy with work and constant travel? Could the lack of emotional support and attention from Rick have played a significant role in Adam's struggles? In addition to family issues, another critical factor to consider is the Harrison family's living and working environment. Rumors about the tense atmosphere at the gold and silver pawn shop had circulated for years. Some industry insiders believe that the work environment could have placed immense pressure on Adam, even if he wasn't directly involved in managing the shop. The family's fame, coupled with ongoing legal battles and internal conflicts, created a stressful and uncomfortable atmosphere. A family living in such an environment might have felt like they were constantly under scrutiny, with no room to relax or find peace. Although Adam did not seek public attention, his absence from the public eye for over a decade could have been a sign of a life filled with exhaustion and mental strain. Discussions surrounding Adam's death have opened up several theories, ranging from instability in the family environment to external factors like pressure from his father's career and public image. Some believe that Adam may have felt unable to live up to the expectations placed on him by his famous father, struggling to find fulfillment in his personal life. These factors may have contributed to the tragic decision he ultimately made. In addition to the family pressures, Adam's death has also led many to reflect on the elements beyond his control, such as the substances he abused. The misuse of fentanyl and methamphetamine has become a significant societal issue and may have played a major role in the tragedy. Adam might have turned to these substances to escape the psychological pressure and stress from work, family, and the public, only to face irreversible consequences. The death of Adam Harrison is not just a personal tragedy, but also a reminder of the invisible pressures faced by those living in the shadow of fame. It is also a story of the dark sides of the Harrison family, a family that has endured not only legal battles, but also psychological strain, complex relationships, and constant public expectations. The larger question that remains unanswered is whether Adam's death will mark the end of a painful chapter or if it will spark profound changes in the way the Harrison family addresses and confronts their issues. Do Adam Harrison's poor personal choices reflect the chaos in his mind? Although there is no clear evidence to support this, the question still invites significant reflection. The substances Adam used, such as fentanyl and methamphetamine, became a part of his life, further adding to the tragedy of the event. Adam's passing is not only a personal tragedy for the family, but also a wake-up call about the impact of fame and societal pressure on the lives of people from influential families like the Harrisons. Can Rick Harrison find solace for the pain of losing his son? Or will this loss forever remain an unhealed wound in the Harrison family's life? These questions, though never fully answered, continue to haunt the Harrison family. While the lawsuit with Joanne remains a legal quagmire, Adam's passing is a painful and irremovable tragedy, forcing all of us to reflect on the hidden aspects behind the glamour of fame and wealth. Perhaps the most important question is whether Adam's death truly marks the end of a chapter in the Harrison family's life, or if it is just the beginning of a longer tragedy, where the ghosts of the past continue to haunt them. Since Pawn Stars debuted, the show quickly became one of the most sensational reality TV programs in the United States, not only bringing international fame to Rick Harrison, but also helping him build a powerful financial empire. However, fame does not always yield positive results. Behind the glitz and glamour of the show, a series of controversies, legal troubles, and internal conflicts gradually emerged, exposing the darker sides of the entertainment industry and the cost that those involved must pay to maintain their public image. From its first broadcast, Pawn Stars quickly attracted a large audience, bringing Rick Harrison and his family into the unrelenting spotlight of the public. The gold and silver pawn shop, where the show is filmed, became a famous landmark. Rick, in his role as the host, became a familiar face to millions of viewers. However, not everyone viewed this fame positively. The show not only brought Rick recognition, but also placed a heavy legal and social burden on him. One of the first disputes Rick had to face was the lack of transparency in the partnership agreements with his business associates. For a large-scale program like this, collaboration with numerous partners and media companies was essential. However, many individuals in the production crew and business partners accused Rick of a lack of honesty in financial dealings. Ambiguous contracts, unfair profit sharing, and unforeseen agreements being issued without prior notification were among the complaints of those involved in the show. This issue extended beyond just the crew's relationships. A significant number of business partners and individuals who had worked with Rick also expressed dissatisfaction with his methods. These individuals accused Rick of using the show as a tool to further his own personal and business interests, neglecting the commitments made to those who had stood by him throughout the journey. Some members of the production crew shared feelings of being exploited and lacking proper recognition, despite their significant contributions to the success of the show. Many theories have been put forward to shed light on these issues. Some people argue that Rick, like many other television personalities, became too focused on maintaining his public image, overlooking the finer details in contracts and financial agreements. On the other hand, others believe that the immense pressure of fame made it difficult for Rick to maintain transparency and fairness in his professional relationships. The price of fame isn't just limited to advertising contracts and new business opportunities, but also involves complex relationships, public criticism, and the relentless scrutiny that comes with being in the public eye. In addition to disputes with business partners and the production crew, a series of other legal issues began to surface. Lawsuits involving property ownership, profit-sharing rights, and unresolved collaboration agreements became a constant. While Rick had successfully built and expanded his pawn shop into a renowned brand, behind this achievement lay the legal troubles he faced, partly due to unclear agreements and partly due to internal conflicts within his company. Some industry insiders argue that the fame created by the Pawn Stars cannot last forever without a significant price. Longtime collaborators began to feel sidelined, not receiving fair compensation for their efforts. This led to tension and conflicts that significantly impacted the stability of the show. These relationships, once seemingly strong, now represented cracks in the perfect facade that Pawn Stars had built. Meanwhile, Rick Harrison was faced with questions about the ethical aspects of his business practices. Did he truly care about those around him and acknowledge their contributions, or did he merely view them as tools to maintain his own public image? This question wasn't just an issue between Rick and his associates, but a broader issue concerning the values of fame in modern society. Was the price of maintaining a public image for the success of a popular television show worth the sacrifice of fairness and the trust of those who helped build it? Certainly, not all the relationships within Pawn Stars were harmonious. The discord between members of the production team, business partners, and Rick Harrison showed that fame is not always a benign force. Behind it lay untold stories, secrets that the public would never know. Therefore, fame and notoriety always come at a cost that not everyone is willing to pay. The Gold and Silver Pawn Shop, a famous landmark thanks to the Pawn Stars TV show, now faces an uncertain future. Ongoing lawsuits, intense legal disputes, and the withdrawal of investors are painting a grim picture for the future of both the shop and the beloved television program. Gold and Silver Pawn Shop had become a brand tightly linked to the Harrison family's fame and wealth. However, notoriety doesn't always equate to stability. The lawsuits related to property ownership, opaque financial agreements, and disputes with partners have raised doubts about Rick Harrison's business methods. These disagreements are not only personal issues, but also pose a significant challenge to the existence of the shop and the show. Some investors have begun to withdraw or demand a re-evaluation of existing agreements. These investors have played a crucial role in expanding the shop and helping to sustain the success of the program, and now they are expressing concerns about the future of the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop. The relationship between Rick Harrison and his business partners has grown increasingly tense, with emergency meetings being convened to address financial disputes and clarify issues related to profits and ownership rights. Against this backdrop, the future of Pawn Stars also appears uncertain. Although the show still maintains a large viewership, the instability in business relationships and the ongoing legal battles could severely impact the production of future episodes. This raises the question of whether Pawn Stars can continue to attract viewers and whether the show can survive amidst escalating conflicts. However, there are also theories suggesting that this instability may open new opportunities for those involved. Some industry insiders speculate that there could be changes in the production methods of the show or even a major restructuring of the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop organization. But until the lawsuits are resolved and the conflicts addressed, everything remains uncertain. Despite all these challenges, it cannot be denied that Gold and Silver Pawn Shop remains a strong brand, and Rick Harrison still holds an important position in the entertainment industry. However, if the legal issues and conflicts are not resolved in a timely manner, the shop and the television show will face an uncertain future, depending on the outcome of the ongoing lawsuits. A leak of court documents has revealed deep-seated secrets behind Rick Harrison's fame and the Harrison family's rise to prominence. The lawsuits, financial disputes, and family conflicts are not only cracks in his personal life, but also clear evidence of the price one must pay to enter the dazzling world of fame. Despite achieving unprecedented success through Pawn Stars and the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop, Rick Harrison and his family have not escaped the challenges of public life. Fame comes with relentless public scrutiny, creating significant tension. Family conflicts, particularly with Rick's son, Adam Harrison, alongside financial and legal disputes, have made his life more complicated than ever. Rick Harrison's story serves as a powerful reminder of the cutthroat price one must pay to attain fame and success in the entertainment world. With the fame gained through television, those involved not only face the pressures of work and celebrity, but also struggle with internal conflicts, financial disputes, and even personal tragedies. Fame does not always equate to happiness. Sometimes it is the source of deep and persistent wounds. With the leaked court documents, a more complex portrait of Rick Harrison's life begins to emerge. Beneath the stage lights and the glamour of Pawn Stars lies a rarely seen dark side, family secrets, and conflicts that have been brewing for years. And perhaps in a world where fame always comes with scrutiny and criticism, the price one must pay will always exceed what anyone can imagine. Rick Harrison collapsed after an unnamed injection in the prison infirmary. The nurse was the only witness to the event. No one knows what substance was injected into his body. There were no records, no cameras, no explanation. Only the eerie silence and a completely changed Rick Harrison emerged. Empty, exhausted, as if his very identity had been erased. The prison nurse, the sole person to witness that fateful moment, silently confirmed a cold truth that no one dared speak of. A needle, the power that altered hands, a body and soul manipulated. These are views based on my perspective. I do not venture to make any definitive claims, but if the following hypotheses are correct, Rick Harrison's story may not end here. Chapter 1. A confession in the dark. What the priest hears in the confessional. In the narrow space where dim light filters through the ornate wood panels of the confessional, the priest sits still, hands clasped tightly before him. On the other side, a familiar yet heavy voice resounds. Without needing to look, he knows it is Rick Harrison, but not the Rick from Pawn Stars, not the savvy man on television with sharp appraisals and his signature grin. This is a different Rick, a naked soul. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned, for I have gone on air. The familiar opening, like countless other confessions, but this time a tremor. A tremor not originating from the throat, but seemingly emanating from the very core of Rick's being. A man who has lived too long in his own skin. No one in this parish knew that Rick regularly confessed. Each time he would choose late hours when the church was immersed in silence, and his confessions seemed to merge with the sacred space only to vanish. If you enjoyed this story and want to see it continue, don't forget to like, share the video, and leave your thoughts in the comments below to let us know. And be sure to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any of our upcoming exciting videos. Now, let's dive back into this fascinating story together. Last night, everything changed. The priest, bound by his sacred duty never to reveal the identity of the penitent, could no longer suppress the doubt in his mind. What he heard in Rick Harrison's confession shattered his faith, forcing him to question, "Whom am I granting absolution to?" Rick's words were not just ordinary confessions. They were a desperate cry from a person breaking apart within themselves. Rick spoke of an overwhelming exhaustion, of a weariness not just physical, but mental. He felt trapped in a fabricated world from which he could not escape. "I've become a character I no longer recognize," Rick confessed. These words resonated in the dim room, evoking a deep inner conflict within him. For many, Rick Harrison was the epitome of the American dream. He built an empire from a small pawn shop in Las Vegas, the model of success, the man many aspired to be. But behind the glamour, according to the priest's account, stood a man tortured by vague moral choices and a sense of estrangement from his own life. Rick recounted an incident from the past, when he refused to help a homeless man simply because the man had nothing to trade. "I looked at him as if he were a worthless object," Rick said, his eyes seemingly gazing back at himself. It was the first moment in his life that he began to question his own humanity. Had the wealth he accumulated eroded his sense of self? That question remains unanswered, and perhaps it will haunt him for the rest of his life. As the conversation progressed, Rick began to whisper, his voice becoming softer, almost inaudible. He confessed that he knew some of the items brought in by customers were actually stolen, but he had deliberately turned a blind eye. Not because of greed, he emphasized, but because the network behind those transactions was too vast and complex. Was this the truth? Or was it just a way for him to reassure himself, to avoid facing the painful reality? The priest wasn't sure, but he could sense that Rick was confessing more than he was saying. The more he listened, the more the priest felt an unexplainable turmoil. There was another part that sent a chill down his spine, and that was when Rick shared about his relationship with his son, Corey Harrison. Not because of a lack of love, but because they were too much alike. Rick described their relationship as a mirror that he hated looking into, a reflection of flaws he had never fixed. Now, those same flaws were magnified in his son. Rick felt powerless as he watched Corey walk the path he had once walked, the path where the pursuit of profit had overshadowed love, turning him cold and indifferent. The priest recalled that throughout the confession, Rick had paused many times. His silence was not because of forgetfulness, but because he didn't want to continue. There was something deep within Rick's soul that he longed to express, but it was suppressed just before the words could form. Rick said, "There are things, if I say them, no one will look at me the same way again." That sentence made the priest realize that this man was not only seeking forgiveness, he was seeking a safe haven, a place where he could simply be himself without having to play the character that the world expected him to be. What troubled the priest was not just Rick's confessions, but how he spoke about his faith. Rick admitted, "I believe in God, but I don't know if God still believes in me." These words echoed in the priest's mind like a curse. A man who had spent his life becoming a symbol, living under the relentless glare of cameras, now doubting the sacred value of redemption. For this reason, the priest broke his own rule and confided in a trusted parishioner, which eventually led to the story being spread further. It wasn't because of Rick's fame, but rather the dangerous desperation he was going through. Rick was not just confessing, he was crying for help. And that cry, if left unheard, could lead to a tragedy in the future, especially since the unhealed wound of the death of Adam, Rick's son, still ached deeply. The priest offered no further commentary. He simply left behind a profound statement. He is not just a man seeking forgiveness. He is a man trying to remember who he was before the world made him forget. No one knew how Rick felt after that confession. There were no cameras, no audience, just a priest and a soul stripped bare, facing the darkness within himself. But perhaps in that moment, Rick Harrison revealed a part of himself that no one had ever seen, not even himself. Was this confession a turning point in Rick's life, or just a fleeting moment between the whirlwinds of fame, where even the sacred was swept away like an old object on a dusty shelf? Perhaps we will never know for certain. But one thing is clear. That night, in the darkness of the church, Rick Harrison was no longer a celebrity. He was simply a man searching for his way back to himself. Rick Harrison, the familiar television figure to millions through Pawn Stars, always appeared with a confident demeanor, a sharp smile, and a keen eye that could appraise an item in an instant. But what lies beneath that spotlight? Is it deep knowledge, years of experience, or just a glossy shell gradually rotting, concealing the irreparable cracks in the soul of a man who no longer recognizes himself? As the show slowly fades into the background, one cannot help but wonder, will Rick Harrison ever find his true self again? Or will he remain forever a pawn in a game too vast and complex, where he can only follow the steps others have orchestrated? In the end, the truth, no matter how painful, will be revealed. And when the final curtain falls on Rick Harrison's life, what will remain is not the viewership ratings or the glamour of fame, but the silent shadow of a man who once sold everything, except his soul. A former close friend of Rick, who asked to remain anonymous, bitterly remarked, "Rick is no longer Rick. It's like he's living in an endless script and he's forgotten how to escape the character." The early years of Pawn Stars were filled with enthusiasm. Rick was present at every filming session with passion. He spared no effort in thoroughly researching the items to provide the most accurate and engaging lines on television. However, time is a relentless force. Fame came with its pressures. Unspoken expectations accumulated each day, weighing heavily on Rick's shoulders. He could no longer afford to be tired, angry, or make mistakes. Rick had to always be the golden boss, a perfect image, always sharp, always ready. Every time he stepped out into the streets, people recognized him, asking for autographs, taking pictures, even bringing family heirlooms to the shop just to appear on TV. From season 4 onward, according to close sources, Rick began suffering from chronic insomnia. Thoughts repeatedly echoed in his mind like a song stuck on repeat. Did I handle that item correctly? Will the audience like it? Am I still holding the central role in the show? Questions that seemed trivial yet never ceased, as though they were the very fuel draining him dry. There were rumors that Rick sought therapy between 2015 and 2017, when the show began to plateau and he felt increasingly lost. An acquaintance claimed to have seen Rick sitting silently in the waiting room of a mental health facility in Nevada. His face was gaunt, his eyes hollow, a Rick completely different from the one viewers saw on screen. Nothing was ever confirmed. But would a powerful man like Rick easily admit that he was cracking from within? And if that fracture was real, it wasn't limited to Rick's mind. It spread, quietly like cracks on glass, reaching even those closest to him. Rick's ex-wife once said, her voice soft but saturated with painful truth, "Fame is a silent guest in your house. It takes your seat at the dinner table before you even realize." Rick had been through 3 marriages, and all 3 ended for the same reason. He was no longer present in the family. Even when he was at home, his mind was still stuck on the set. When he smiled at his children, his gaze was already focused on the next scene that needed to be filmed. He no longer lived in the present moment. He lived in the pressure of what was to come. And like a cruel fate, the price of fame was a quiet but irreversible rift between Rick and the very people he had once loved the most. What is even more heartbreaking for many is the theory that Rick's deteriorating mental state may have played a role in the tragedy of Adam Harrison, the son who was rarely mentioned. Adam, the quiet shadow in Rick's family, was a name Rick avoided mentioning in every interview. And then, when Adam suddenly passed away, a series of questions arose. Did the emotional neglect from his father contribute? Did Rick choose the spotlight over being a true father? No one can offer a definitive answer, but Rick is haunted by that question. The empty stares, the outbursts of anger on set, the moments of impatience in production meetings, all of these pointed to one thing. Rick was no longer the calm, calculating man he once was. He was a man struggling to keep the Rick Harrison character on screen from collapsing while his true self was slowly falling apart behind the scenes. Fame, when attained, is often admired by society, but for Rick Harrison, it is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it brings wealth, influence, and an irreplaceable position in American pop culture. On the other hand, it gradually eats away at the remaining parts of his humanity: fatherhood, marriage, peace of mind, and even his own identity. Could it be that the true cost of fame lies not in the money, but in how much of one's humanity must be sacrificed to keep the image alive? Rick Harrison once embodied the American success story, a man who built his name from scratch, turning a small pawn shop in Las Vegas into a global television empire. But over time, that success became a gilded cage that confined him. And as the spotlight shone long enough, it not only highlighted the glamour but also exposed the darker corners, the wounds, the obsessions, and even the deepest fears. Rick began to change. No longer the calm man with a steady smile, he became irritable, quick-tempered, and seemingly indifferent to maintaining the image that the public had come to associate with him. A veteran editor from the production team once revealed that Rick started requesting cuts to scenes that featured too much of Corey Harrison. He didn't give a specific reason, but those in the industry understood. Perhaps Rick felt that his central position was being threatened. Is this a manifestation of anxiety disorder or a position obsession, where self-worth is tightly bound to public presence? Some psychologists suggest that Rick may be suffering from imposter syndrome, the feeling that he doesn't deserve his success, and that one day the truth will be exposed. If that's the case, then Rick's inability to ever fully be satisfied with any achievement, whether it be his vast wealth or the admiration of millions, becomes less surprising. And fame, as they say, is a double-edged sword. It can elevate you to the highest peak, only to suddenly throw you into the depths. Rick Harrison is the living proof of that paradox. The man who was once the symbol of a hit show, a respected businessman, is now rumored to be sinking into doubt, loneliness, and a relentless inner struggle. What sends a chill down the spine is the thought that if all these signs are true, if Rick has truly been caught in an ongoing internal crisis for years, then the tragedy of his son, Adam Harrison, might be the result of a series of irreversible wrong choices. Or is it simply a cruel twist of fate? No one speaks up. There are no official answers. But behind the applause, Rick might be alone, confronting questions without answers. And somewhere in his mind, the voice from the past still echoes. I built an empire, but at what cost? If the stage lights are the dazzling glow of fame, then money is the stage where all eyes are constantly fixed, though no one truly sees the real person inside. Rick Harrison has been performing relentlessly on that stage for over a decade, a performance with no intermissions. Fame not only brings psychological pressure, but also creates a subtle dependence on money, power, and the illusion of control. When Pawn Stars became a global phenomenon, the small pawn shop on Las Vegas Boulevard was no longer just a business. It became the heart of a massive commercial empire, extending through retail chains, branded merchandise, and even international television licensing deals. Rick is a leader, and in the world of profit, every decision, no matter how small, is a double-edged sword. Several sources have revealed that Rick once took a risky investment in a fast food chain called Pawn Burger, a bold fusion of the Pawn Stars brand with the food industry. The idea seemed unique, but in reality, it turned into a massive financial failure. Operating costs far exceeded revenue. After just 18 months, Rick had to hastily sell his stake, accepting a loss of nearly $2 million USD. This incident was never publicly disclosed because the image of Rick always wins had to be preserved. Failures like this, even though they never made it into the media, left Rick with a growing sense of loss of control, prompting him to tighten his grip on the remaining aspects of his empire. At the same time, Rick entered into a deal with an investment group from California to expand the Pawn Stars model into a nationwide franchise. However, according to several internal sources, Rick frequently clashed with his new partners over what he saw as selling out the soul of the show. One acquaintance recounted, Rick felt like the show was no longer his. It had become overly commercialized, and he couldn't stop it from happening. Throughout every stage, Rick carried an invisible burden. He had to be the one who could never break. But is anyone truly invincible in a world where every light has its shadow? The plan to expand the pawnshop chain under the Pawn Stars brand was once seen as a strategic move forward. Rick Harrison had the ambition to take the image of his gold and silver pawn shop to major states like Texas, Florida, and Arizona, with a model that closely mirrored the real store and its unique style. However, things quickly took a dark turn when some of the partners in the deal were accused of involvement in money laundering and tax evasion. To protect his personal image and prevent any damage to the brand he had worked so hard to build, Rick was forced to withdraw from the business alliance and pay a hefty sum to quietly resolve the legal consequences. The financial loss was evident, but what was truly sacrificed during that period was his personal relationships, especially with his son, Corey Harrison. In the early seasons of the show, viewers often saw Rick and Corey working together, arguing, and occasionally teasing each other on air, a sign that their bond was not only professional, but familial. However, as the show progressed, Corey's appearances began to dwindle, and the explanations for his absence, citing personal projects, seemed to be just the surface of a much larger issue beneath. A tense confrontation was said to have taken place during a private meeting at the shop, where Corey questioned his father about the lack of transparency regarding the profit sharing from the show's various revenue streams, from Discovery Channel to merchandise sales and advertising deals. According to a staff member who was present, The argument escalated to the point where the two didn't speak for several weeks afterward. Additionally, it was rumored that Rick had signed a separate agreement with the production team, allowing him to preview and approve the content of episodes before they aired. This effectively meant he could control his public image while minimizing the influence of other cast members, including his son. This helps explain why, as time went on, the roles of Corey and Chumlee in the show became more diminished, while Rick increasingly became portrayed as the central figure, the one with the final say. But while power is a double-edged sword, excessive control is not immune to consequences. Rick could shape how he appeared on television, but he couldn't control the growing emotional distance between himself and his family. In one telling instance, Corey proposed a new business venture, creating an online platform for selling certified antiques, bridging traditional stores with the digital world. Though the idea was widely considered innovative and promising within the team, Rick outright rejected it. His reasoning was that the new model would disrupt the brand's unity and make content management more difficult. Corey didn't react aggressively, but instead quietly distanced himself from the old path, developing his own project and carving out an independent path. From that point on, the rift between the two became clearer than ever before. Ironically, even though Rick had expressed his intention to take a break and live a peaceful life many times, he seemed never truly able to stop. New projects kept being launched, new deals signed, even at an age when one might expect to think more about peace than profit. Part of this was because he had grown too accustomed to the relentless pace of the business world, where every decision had to yield measurable value. But another part, perhaps deep inside, was that Rick feared that if he stopped, he would have to face his true self, without the camera lights, without the fans, without the revenue from each episode. Just an old man alone in the Las Vegas desert, surrounded by his valuable collection and the shattered fragments of lost memories. The question now isn't whether Rick has enough power to control everything around him, but whether he truly controls his own life. For when the spotlight obscures the most important things, love, faith, connection, power becomes just another form of imprisonment. And Rick Harrison, once the mastermind of an empire, is perhaps now only trying to reclaim the small piece of himself left in a game he once thought he was controlling. In the world of pawn shops, everything has a price. But not always are we clear-headed enough to realize when the price is too high to pay. The death of Adam Harrison in January 2024 shocked the entire United States, marking a tragedy not only for the Harrison family, but also for the loyal followers of Pawn Stars over the past decade. Adam, the son of Rick Harrison, the star of the famous reality TV show, died at the age of 39 due to a drug overdose. His passing was not only a personal shock, but also shattered the television family image that Rick had worked so hard to build and maintain over the years. Despite being the son of one of the most well-known figures on American television, Adam lived a life largely in the shadows. He rarely appeared on episodes of Pawn Stars and was often overshadowed by his older brother Corey, who was seen as the heir apparent and the brightest star of the Harrison family. According to the coroner's report released in March 2024, Adam passed away due to the effects of fentanyl and methamphetamine, powerful addictive substances at the top of the list of most dangerous drugs in the United States. This only added to the tragic nature of his death, as Adam was not known for any particular achievement, but rather for a life consumed by addiction and an untimely, heartbreaking death. In contrast to Corey Harrison, who was prominent on television and frequently appeared alongside his father in the show, Adam had distanced himself from the family's pawn shop for years, seeking his own path. Yet it seemed that, during that time, he never truly found a place for himself within a family that had become widely recognized due to the television show. Some of Adam's close friends revealed that he was a very intelligent person, with a sense of humor similar to his father Rick's. However, Adam always felt sidelined within his own family, where fame and prominence were reserved for his older brother Corey. These feelings may have led him to struggle with finding his place, not only within his family, but also in society at large. This became even more apparent when Adam was hardly ever mentioned in public interviews or featured on episodes of Pawn Stars, despite being part of the family that built the show's success. After Adam's death, Rick Harrison issued a brief statement expressing his sorrow and requesting privacy during this painful time. However, his silence following Adam's death raised many questions. Some began to suspect that Rick might be hiding something, while others believed he simply couldn't face the overwhelming pain he was experiencing. A close family friend shared on a podcast that Rick was completely devastated after Adam's passing. No longer the cold, calculating figure people knew him to be, Rick reportedly spent hours sitting in his office, staring at old photographs. It's rumored that he repeatedly muttered, "I should have done something sooner." This statement could just be a simple expression of regret, but it could also be a silent acknowledgement that Rick missed the chance to help his son escape the path of addiction, one that he did not create, but certainly could have prevented. Meanwhile, Corey's silence, the older brother of Adam, only added to the confusion. After Adam's death, Corey did not post any tributes, make public statements, or appear in new episodes of Pawn Stars. This drew considerable attention, as Corey had always been seen as the clear heir to the Harrison family legacy and the main figure on the show. Perhaps Adam's passing made Corey feel an overwhelming emptiness, not only because he lost a sibling, but also because he realized that his family had been so fractured that it was beyond repair. This event might have awakened in Corey a profound sense of loss, not just personally, but also regarding the family relationships that had gradually been eroded by divisions over work, assets, and the overwhelming media attention. It has been reported that after Adam's funeral, Corey and Rick had a private conversation. During this conversation, both reportedly cried inconsolably, not just due to the loss of a loved one, but also because of their helplessness in facing a family that, due to television, money, and public image, had forced all members to fit a mold. These tears were not about forgiveness. They were a recognition of the deep divide within the family. They cried not because they had forgiven one another, but because they could not go back and fix the mistakes that had accumulated over the years. Nonetheless, it's undeniable that Adam's death exposed the pain and helplessness of both Rick and Corey as they realized that their family could not overcome the profound rifts in their relationships. Rick Harrison's statement in a 2019 interview poignantly captures the profound shift in his perspective after the death of his son. "I never thought I would have to bury one of my children, but it happened. And now he can't go back and make things right anymore. The television contracts, the million-dollar vintage watches, or the expanding chain of stores, all of it became meaningless at that moment." This remark not only reflects Rick's immense grief, but also reveals a painful truth. Adam's death fundamentally altered his view on life, the values, and the achievements he had pursued for years. Adam's death was not merely a personal loss. It served as a wake-up call for Rick about the sacrifices he had made in his relentless pursuit of success and fame. While material assets, such as Rolex watches, priceless antiques, or even the thriving chain of stores, might provide temporary satisfaction, the loss of a child is a pain that cannot be healed by money or public recognition. This tragic event pushed Rick to reevaluate what truly matters in life, reminding him that some things are irreplaceable no matter how much wealth or status one attains. Adam's death was not just the result of a fentanyl overdose. It marked the tragic end of a long series of neglected choices and unspoken emotions. It reflects a family system where fame and public image consumed everything, including intimate relationships and familial love. In Rick Harrison's world, where everything can be bought or pawned, from expensive material goods to medieval swords, there is one thing that cannot be traded: the pain of losing a child. While everything else can be pawned, no offer is high enough to exchange for a broken heart, and no sum of money can soothe the deep sorrow and regret that Rick now carries. Adam's death also raises an important question. Does Rick Harrison have the courage to face the truth about his life? Or will he continue to build a fortress from wealth, power, and public image to hide his pain and regrets? We can't know for sure, but one thing is certain. Adam didn't die because of a drug overdose alone. He died because of past mistakes, unexpressed emotions, and the imposition of a family system where the spotlight overshadowed the true values that should have been cherished. In a world where everything can be valued, from material possessions to relationships, there is one thing that money cannot buy: genuine connection between family members. In Rick Harrison's world, where fame and success can be measured by numbers and contracts, the pain of losing his son is something that cannot be compensated for, traded, or replaced. No one asks Rick, "Would you like to pawn a bit of your past?" Because in this world, no value is high enough to exchange for a broken heart. Rick Harrison is a prominent figure in the world of reality television, the founder of the famous pawn shop chain, and the face of the show Pawn Stars. But behind the spotlight, one big question remains. Does Rick truly have control over his own life? Or is he just a puppet in the hands of anonymous directors controlling every step he takes? In the world of reality television, there is an unwritten rule that few people realize. Those who appear in front of the camera are rarely the ones who truly hold the power. While Rick is the heart and soul of Pawn Stars and always the central figure in the episodes, behind him is a complex network of producers, directors, media teams, lawyers, and financial partners. These are the people who make the decisions. Everything from selecting the items to appear on the show to the strategic decisions about branding and image promotion. Every decision Rick makes, whether it's accepting a new item or deciding whether to retain or fire staff, must be carefully calculated to fit the demands of the show and the image they want to create. In reality, not every situation in Pawn Stars arises from Rick's spontaneous actions. Many are scripted and prearranged to ensure the show remains engaging and maintains high viewer ratings. A close source once revealed that Rick is sometimes pressured to participate in scripted scenarios, all in the name of keeping the audience's attention. This raises the question, are viewers witnessing the real Rick Harrison, or just a version of Rick created and controlled by others? On the other hand, in the financial realm, Rick isn't the only one making decisions. Behind him is a team of shareholders and investment partners who have injected capital into the Harrison family's pawnshop chain. They aren't concerned with personal feelings or family dynamics. They are only interested in profit and brand growth. When financial and strategic decisions are made, Rick faces pressure from financial partners and shareholders. Every time he wants to change the business model, expand into new areas, or even slightly adjust the image of the show, he has to consult and comply with the demands of people who have no personal connection or emotional investment in him. Moreover, Rick's personal relationships can't be separated from the influence of the fame and power structure surrounding him. The tensions between Rick and his son Corey have become an inseparable part of the Harrison family story. According to multiple sources, most of these conflicts didn't just stem from internal family issues, but also from the interference of the show's production team. They actively encourage the conflict, aiming to boost the show's appeal. The tense situations and arguments between family members, from one perspective, could be seen as a strategy to keep the show engaging for viewers, but it also raises questions about the true level of freedom Rick actually has. Is he the one making all the decisions, or is he just a character created to serve the goals of unseen forces behind the scenes? While this question is hard to answer, it only highlights the complexity of life for a reality TV star. In a world where everything has a price, even freedom, Rick Harrison may have had to pay with his real life to trade for those immortal moments on television. Fame is not something easily obtained, and in Rick's case, it came at a very high cost. From being the owner of a small pawn shop, Rick rose to become a national icon, associated with the image of a smart, humorous, and shrewd man who could evaluate the worth of objects. However, behind the bright lights of fame and recognition, there is an undeniable painful truth. In order to gain all of that, Rick had to bet his entire life on a game whose outcome was a complete transformation of his personal relationships. Fame, money, and power are desires that drive people, and Rick Harrison is no exception. Every time he steps in front of the camera, he is no longer Rick, the father, the friend, the man who once struggled with childhood epilepsy, but Rick Harrison, the boss of Pawn Stars. These very elements transformed him from a real person into a television brand. However, the price of fame is never cheap. It consumes time, erodes family relationships, and creates a thick shell that is difficult to penetrate. The arguments with Corey, Adam's absence from the show, the tough decisions Rick has had to make for the greater good, all of these are direct consequences of living too long under the public microscope. Ironically, Rick, who is always the expert in evaluating the value of every item, cannot truly assess the loss of what really matters, the loss of what is most important. In the pawn business, everything can be converted into money. Antique watches, rare cars, 19th century love letters. But there is one thing that no one can bring to the pawn shop: loneliness. No one wants to pawn memories unless those memories have become too heavy to bear. Rick once shared in an interview, "Fame is strange. It gives you everything, and it takes everything away." Though this statement might seem contradictory, it is a perfect summary of Rick Harrison's life. Fame has given him everything, but it has also taken everything, from privacy to family relationships, even to his very ability to make choices in life. As the show slowly fades into the background, one cannot help but wonder, Will Rick Harrison ever find his true self again? Or will he remain forever a pawn in a game too vast and complex, where he can only follow the steps others have orchestrated? In the end, the truth, no matter how painful, will be revealed. And when the final curtain falls on Rick Harrison's life, what will remain is not the viewership ratings or the glamour of fame, but the silent shadow of a man who once sold everything except his soul. If you find this story interesting and full of surprises, don't forget to like, share the video, and leave your thoughts in the comments below to let us know what you think. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any of our other exciting videos. Thank you for watching until the end, and see you in the next videos.